Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to our Central Michigan Visitors Edition. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. With us in just a few minutes to get us familiar with the Chippewas will be their radio play-by-play voice, Adam Jacksa. First, we get it started with my view from Section 17. Okay, if I had to sum up Saturday's Oklahoma game in one phrase, it would be total fail. There was not one thing we did well on Saturday night. It was another example of why we shouldn't have put too much on what we saw in the New Mexico game. I've been around Michigan football for decades, and I still fall into the preseason, early season hype too often. We all tend to drink the Kool-Aid. Then, reality smacks you in the face when you face your first really good football team. Make no mistake about this. I think Oklahoma is a very good football team. Does that mean we won't be? No. But we have to improve in every facet of the game. I think that was obvious. In particular, the offensive line. After the game, all I heard was the game plan was crap, and we paid $10 million for a quarterback and didn't turn him loose. Both claims are not based in reality, in my opinion. Pro Football Focus charted Bryce Underwood being pressured on 19 of his 24 passing attempts. What that means is he rarely had time to set his feet and scan the field or take a look anywhere. We can talk about the receivers not getting separation, maybe. But that's not the burning issue right now, and we know it. It's the offensive line. It has to be better, and I think it will be. When you give up 19 hurries, either you are up against one of the elite fronts in college football, or you collectively have problems with that offensive line. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. The truth is, we have a lot of work to do. So as down as many of you are, we have to strap it on just like the team and get better. This week we should feel better after playing Central Michigan, but the next true indicator of where this team is headed will be down in Lincoln a week from Saturday. Don't hit the eject button on the season yet, though. At his Monday presser, Sharon talked about Biff Poggi and his staff plans for the next 2 weeks.
We'll operate as a collective unit. Chip will handle the offense, Wink will handle the defense, JB will handle the special teams, but the overall operation, Coach Biff Poggi will stand in as the interim. It'll be, it'll flow like normal. Obviously, I won't be on the sideline and be there, but how we handle game days with, Chip handling the offense and Wink handling the defense and JB handling the special teams will feel the same, and our players they'll be ready to go.
Sharon also gave an injury update on a few players.
Zeke, very mild lower body injury, so we'll see how he progresses through the week, but he looks good. And he was jogging around on the sideline on the second half, but that was more precautionary to make sure nothing's wrong. Gio, we'll see. Look, that's day to day, so we'll take a look at that and see how that looks. And Marlon's looking better. We'll see what he can do this week. I think he'll practice a little bit Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we'll go from there.
He also talked about what he's looking for this week from his offensive line.
Consistency, because there's times where there's huge holes, there's times where there's movement at the line of scrimmage, and there's times where there's things that are leaky and loose, and it's got to be consistent. when you play 5 or you play 7 offensive linemen, you've got to have consistency. And there's some things that I thought we could have did, and we've talked about as a staff to come back to that could have combated their defense. And it's a collective thing. It's not just the players, not just the coaches. It's everybody together, and we'll continue to work forward to make sure we clean all that stuff up.
Sharon also mentioned Rod Moore is expected to play this week. My guest today says everything is new in Mount Pleasant this season. A new head coach and staff, plenty of new faces, and the rebuilding job is underway. Joining us today with his thoughts on the state of Central Michigan football is their radio play-by-play voice, Adam Jacksa. He's up next, so stay with us. Joining us on the show this week as we get ready for Saturday's big matchup with Central Michigan is the radio play-by-play voice of the Chippewas, Adam Jacksa. Adam, great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for reaching out. Appreciate it, and looking forward to the game on Saturday.
Well, as always, it's going to be a lot of fun to have the Chips in the big house. Before we get rolling now, I just like to ask my guest a little bit about themselves and, how long you've been covering the Chips. And you do basketball play-by-play too also, right?
Yes, I do. So I became the radio voice back in 2019. So this is my 6th year doing both basketball and football on the radio. And then I've been doing our ESPN3, ESPN Plus coverage as well since 2014. So all of our home basketball on TV, men's, women's, wrestling, volleyball, gymnastics, and I do baseball on the radio as well. So pretty much the last decade, if you've been paying attention to Central Michigan, chances are you may have heard or seen my face.
I think we have. I've seen a lot of you on some of the YouTube too, but you do a great job with Chippewa play-by-play. And I know this season, 2 games in the book now. The Chips started with a 16-14 win over San Jose State, but fell to Pitt on Saturday on the road, 45-17. And Adam, in that one, Pitt got the early lead, and it was just too much for CMU to overcome, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, Central Michigan ran into Pat Narduzzi's defense that's been built really strongly on the defensive line, and you know how good he was defensively when he was under Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State. Mm-hmm. So you saw a lot of that, and Central Michigan is very run-oriented this year. So once the rushing wasn't working, and I think, a little bit through the first half, they had like no yards or -6 yards and finished with like 40 yards. Then it got pretty tough. I will say Central Michigan, they battled back. I mean, it was 24-3 at one point, and then they got a turnover and made it 24-10 at halftime. And then Central Michigan scored first in the second half to make it 24-17. And then, Pitt turned it on and said, hey, we're from the ACC, and they finished the game with 21 unanswered points. So as lopsided statistically as it was, still impressive that Central Michigan was fighting and had it to within a possession midway through that third quarter.
Well, I thought one of the interesting stats in Saturday's game, though, was time of possession. I know that sometimes we look at that too much, but Central had the ball for over 36 minutes. Pitt had it for just over 23 minutes. The difference was they used some quick strikes, I think 5 or 6 scores, 3 minutes or under.
Yeah, they're a very tempo-heavy offense, so they are not going to be possessing the football very much, and Central Michigan is, again, more of your old school, run the football, line it up, run power, and see if you can hang onto the football and possess it, especially when you're playing an opponent like Pitt or this weekend against Michigan. You'd like to keep the other team's talented offense off the field and be able to dictate what's going on with having the possession on your side. So that was the plan on Saturday. But again, it's tough when you're punting a lot and you're not getting a ton of first downs and not being able to create anything on the ground. And then Pitt is scoring pretty fast on the other side.
Well, it is sometimes difficult to find positives in a loss like that. But what did you see from the team that, was encouraging in the way they played at Pitt?
Yeah, I expect this team to be balanced offensively. And we went to San Jose, and that was a huge win to start off the Matt Drinkle era and snap at that point, a 10-game losing streak on the road from the prior staff and Jim McElwain. So they knocked that one off right away, get that first victory, but they ran it 51 times out of their 74 snaps in that first game against the Spartans. So wanted to see if there would be some more wrinkles throwing the football. And they were kind of forced to do it because Pitt shut them down on the ground. So they have talented quarterbacks, and they've rotated 3, and they have talented wide receivers. So we were wondering if we would see more passing. We did, and there was some really nice pass plays specifically in that second half to help them move the football and keep drives alive. So I think that was encouraging. And the other thing was, again, their fight. I mean, they didn't give up. You're down 24-3 late in the first half. You easily could pack it in, and it could be an ugly, 52-45 to 3 or 10 finish. And I know it was lopsided at the end, but again, they had it to within a possession midway through the third quarter after getting off to a slower start, and they battled. And that's part of the process of building your program only 2 games deep. You may not have the personnel, or you may not have the teaching yet, and just everything installed on how you want your identity to be. But the kids need to battle for you, and they certainly did on Saturday out there in Pittsburgh.
Well, Adam, most of us here in state keep an eye on what's happening with CMU. But for those that don't, it's been a year of change. Jim McElwain, of course, left after last season. Matt Drinkle, now the head coach. Interesting young guy, only 42 years old. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, he's been great. I think they did an excellent job in the search and just getting him in here in early December. But he's got Midwest roots. I know that was important. A guy that grew up in Bettendorf, Iowa, and he's been a head coach at the NAIA level and was really good down there at Kansas Wesleyan. So you've got Midwest guy. You've got a head coach. You've got a guy that obviously has ties to Army and the offensive line, which is something that Central Michigan has been known for with how well they've turned out offensive linemen in the NFL and how they consistently, when they're at their best, can really run the football, which is important up here in the Midwest when it gets chilly in November. And you've been to the MAC stadiums or you've seen them on TV. The wind gets swirling and the snow comes down. So imperative to be able to have that ground attack. So, he checked a lot of boxes, I think. And then he's just got that young energy of not taking for granted all the great facilities that CMU has. I think that is important now because of, just how many impressive teams and facilities there are, especially at the Power 4 level. And you're not going to get as much of that, but there is still a lot to offer here at CMU with a nice stadium, a brand new north end zone building, biggest video board in the Mid-American Conference, and rich history here at CMU. He appreciates all of that, and he's very aware of it, and he's making sure that his players know all the advantages that they have playing football here at CMU. And on top of that, he's re-energized the fan base by making sure that Central Michigan football is very active on social media and engaging with the alums and the former players. Like, he's done all of the things you have to do leading up to the season to get people just excited again about CMU football. So that all led into that first win against San Jose State, a team that was projected to finish top of the Mountain West, top 3, and some were looking at potentially seeing them maybe get to the playoff. And then you go to Pitt, and obviously you run into an ACC team that seems like they might have a really good season. And now you got to go to Michigan. So it's a brutal start of the first 3. I've called them the traveling Chippewas before they'll finally get a chance to come home next week. But I think Drinkle is a perfect fit, and he's going to have a lot of success here in Mount Pleasant.
Tough to start the season, especially with a new head coach on the road for 3 games. But I find him a really interesting guy. He was the offensive line coach at Army. Last year, they won the Joe Moore Award, paved the way for the leading rushing attack in the nation there. So he knows how to build a running game and an offensive line. But he's got an entirely new group to work with there at CMU, doesn't he?
Yes, they are new to him. They've been here before, but yes, that was part of the reason they brought him in, is to, make sure that they could get back to their roots of being able to run the football on the offensive line. And there's, tight ends coach, O-line coach. There's a lot of guys that have been involved with the offensive line. And now it's meshing with guys that have been here before, but maybe haven't been the number one guys or haven't gotten a ton of reps or in new positions for the first time, just in terms of being the guy. But they like a lot of what they have. And in terms of rotating upwards of 8, 9, 10 guys to make sure they can have that depth and build it up. But I think certainly it was a daunting task going to Pittsburgh. After they were able to run for nearly 240 yards at San Jose State, they were hoping to be able to, have some success on the ground this last week. And there was maybe a little bit of, hey, we're playing in a NFL stadium. We're going up against a team that is out of the ACC, maybe some nerves because there were some procedural penalties and there were Pittsburgh Panthers in the backfield pretty quickly. So I think the nerves in the big stadium, and then the fact that obviously you're playing a very good front seven in Pitt, it kind of threw them off. So I think this is a week where they need to get right and they need to just be a little bit more crisper in their game plan, obviously, because Michigan is so sound defensively as well.
Well, as you mentioned, it was a struggle running the ball against Pitt, and then you get behind, and that sort of multiplies the issue. Just over 40 yards, I think it was, on Saturday. Who's been getting the bulk of the carries and has looked good or stepped up in the first 2 weeks in the backfield?
Yeah, it was Trey Cornish and Nari Biggins are the first two, and then you'll see some Brock Townsend as well. They love all three of those backs. They're all about the same size, 6 foot, 6'1", 210 to 220 pounds. Cornish and Biggins both ran for 100 yards in that first game against San Jose State. Cornish, the transfer from Tulane, and he's a Cincinnati guy, so familiar with the Midwest. And Biggins, this is his first year of kind of being one of the guys. He was in the backfield last year, but he was behind a couple of seniors. And he also had switched positions to be a running back for the first time last year. So he and Cornish are newer in different ways, but both capable backs. And Brock Townsend is just a redshirt freshman, but they love that guy. So those would be the three guys you'll expect to see on Saturday. And again, may not stick out against a Michigan or against a team like Pitt, but they are expected to be really good once we get to conference play. And we saw a little ounce of that when we watched that opener against Mountain West foe San Jose State.
Well, as far as the quarterback position goes, we saw 3 on Saturday, and they put up pretty decent numbers against Pitt. 20 for 27, 177 yards. Tell us about them and the receiving corps and some of the names we can watch for on Saturday.
Yeah, again, this is a group that they really like. Joe Labus is returning at quarterback. He only played half the season last year, got injured against Ohio in that 6th game and missed the rest of the year with shoulder injury, and he had to get surgery. But he was able to come back and participate in spring ball, and he was a guy that sat behind the starters at Iowa for a few years before coming over to Central Michigan. And despite all of the issues they had offensively last year with injuries at the wide receiver position and offensive line struggles, he put up over 1,000 yards and had 7 touchdowns to go along with, the 7 interceptions that he had. So it was a pretty good first year for him. Then you've got Jaden Glasser, who they think maybe the most talented of the group, and they feel is going to play in the NFL. He's raw, but he's a big body, 6'2", 230-pounder, and he's got a great arm, but he's only 19 years old. So, very Bryce Underwood-esque in terms of a lot of potential, but he is still just so young. And then you've got Angel Flores, who spent time at Northern Arizona and was the backup there or the starter at times, and he's good dual threat guy. They use him a lot in those running situations when they want to run, use that running back as an extra blocker and try and get something in between the tackles. But he also can throw as well. So 3 really good options for him. And I'm not sure if this will be how it looks all season long, or they're kind of doing a trial run here to see who maybe are the main couple of options once they get into conference play, because that's obviously most important. But if any of those three guys were taking the bulk of the snaps, from talking with their staff, they feel confident in all three. And then the wide receivers, you got to start with Tommy McIntosh, Langston Lewis, and Tyson Davis. All good ball catchers. Tyson Davis had maybe the best catch of the college football weekend. He went up with one hand and caught a first down in that opening quarter against Pittsburgh on Saturday, which was remarkable because he's only 5'10". He was hurt last year, missed the season because of an Achilles injury that happened right in the final week of fall camp, but he was their leading wide receiver with about 450 yards and 4 touchdowns the year prior. Langston Lewis didn't play last year, but they love his athleticism, and he's made a couple of nice catches already. And then Tommy McIntosh was the star at DeWitt High School. He helped them win the state championship back in 2020, and he went to Wisconsin, didn't play, transferred to us last year. I think it took him like a year to kind of just get settled into CMU because he only caught a couple of balls last year for 15 yards, and he's already come out this year and had some big catches. So those are the first three you should expect to see. And again, they're probably going to run it more than they do pass it, but when they do throw it, they've had a lot of success and expect to see that continue because they have talented skill position players.
Well, we know that Coach is coming from an Army run-heavy, pass-sparingly offense. And I'm sure he's going to want to have a more balanced attack eventually there at Central. But how would you describe the offense that he's put in place so far this season?
Yeah, it's been multiple. You'll see him out of the shotgun. You see him under center. Sometimes you'll see 3 to 4 tight end packages. Sometimes you'll see a couple of fullbacks back there. They ran the Maryland I for the first time this last week, which is the 3 backs stacked behind the quarterback under center. So it is that old school flavor. I think it's similar to what you've seen at Michigan sometimes. They'll go under center, maybe more under Harbaugh, but under center and get the fullback involved there and run play action off of that. So that's what we've seen. We've also seen some shotgun, at times, but I think we're still trying to figure out what this offense is going to look like by the end of the year. But when we talked to him when he came in and did the press conference when he got hired, he said a power spread is what they want to do. They want to be physical and be able to line up under center with backs and run it right at you and continue to do that until you can stop it. But also they want to be able to throw the football and be a balanced attack as well. So that so far is what we've seen. It's been more run heavy, especially week 1 when it was working. They ran it a lot this last week, but we saw them open it up a little bit more with some throwing, and we'll see if that continues to build or what eventually we're going to see when they head to Michigan Stadium on Saturday.
Well, over on the other side of the ball, the defense returned 6 starters from a unit that did struggle against the run last year, so it's a rebuild job for the most part over there too. A lot of new faces. Tell us about the kind of defense Coach Drinkle has installed and some of the key players that we're going to see on Saturday in the Big House.
Yeah, it's a multiple defense. They can run 3 down linemen. They can run 4 down linemen. They can run zone. They can run man. I mean, I don't think it's anything different than what you're seeing from a lot of defenses in college football right now, just trying to do different things and also do things that they feel like will help them with whatever that specific matchup is offensively and what's going on in that game specifically, what's going to be able to help them. But, they do bring out a lot back in terms of their linebacking core, and they've got a couple pieces up front and in the back end that were helpful last year. Jordan Kwiatkowski is probably the person you start with. He's a captain returning from last year. He had a nice interception, the second of his career on Saturday against Pitt, which helped them get some late points in that first half to help them kind of quell the momentum for the Panthers. But he's a big thumper, Sterling Heights kid, so he's going to be playing close to home on Saturday afternoon. Dakota Cochran is another good linebacker that is very athletic, redshirt senior that has played a lot of games for Central Michigan. Up front, Fernando Sanchez and Michael Heldman are 2 of their better edge guys. Corver Dema is a first-year transfer from Northwestern College, and he's made some plays early in the season. So Heldman and Sanchez are guys that have been here for a while, and they feel like they can rely on those two. But similar to the offensive line, they're trying to rotate out multiple individuals up front. And then on the back end, they got a lot of experience there. Elijah Ricard and Caleb Spann are back as starters at the safety position. They love Jayon Jackson. He was a true freshman last year, and he started pretty much all year long. So he's back at one of the corner spots. And then Brendan Diaz-Fernandez and Kalen Carroll are the other two cornerbacks that have gotten a lot of run. Both transfers. Diaz-Fernandez is second year out of Iowa, and he had an interception in that first game. And Kalen Carroll, they've actually run a lot at cornerback. He's a first-year transfer from Cincinnati, and he's played a lot of snaps so far through these first two games. So still waiting again to see like what this defense will fully look like. But through the first two games, they held their own and did a great job against San Jose State, and then they ran into a pretty darn good passing attack from Pittsburgh on Saturday.
Well, I know it's been a small sample size, just two games to start the season. Now the third one with Michigan, all on the road, which is really, really tough. So for what Coach Drinkle is trying to establish, have you seen signs that give you reasons, to be optimistic in the short term that things could turn around this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you guys look up in November and you peek at the MAC standings and Central Michigan's in it with a chance to get to the MAC championship. Long way to go. And obviously, I think the biggest thing for a team like this out of the group of five early in the season, when you have a schedule like this, is just staying healthy before you get into conference play, because it is rugged going out to San Jose State and Pitt and Michigan and just trying to one, figure out your identity and grow as a program under a first-year coaching staff, but also to stay upright, as grueling and physical as football is nowadays. So, but there's definitely plenty of signs to lead that this team is going to gain confidence, and already has through the 8 months that he has spent on campus, just taking over the program. And again, the way that they were able to run the rock against a team that I think is pretty equal in stature from that first game, and may have looked like a team that could do pretty well in the MAC in San Jose State. I think they're set up to have a good season, and they also have one of the easier schedules in the MAC. That doesn't mean they're just going to roll things over, but they had the toughest schedule in the MAC last year, and they missed Miami, who was in the MAC championship game. They missed Ohio, who won the MAC championship last year. They don't have to go play Northern Illinois, who has been really good over the last decade and a half in the MAC. And their schedule sets up nicely, once they get into conference play. 2 straight games against teams that we don't know what Eastern Michigan looks like, but they got to come to Mount Pleasant. Akron has struggled, and Bowling Green as a first-year head coach. So, again, I don't know if MAC championship is going to happen here in year one, but again, I would not be surprised if we look up in November and they are playing competitive, meaningful football with a chance to get to Detroit on December 6th.
Well, final question before we let you get away, Adam. Coach McElwain was a pretty darn big name when he took over at CMU, and he had some success, especially early in his tenure there. Now Coach Drinkle pretty much starting from scratch with the program, but with NIL and the portal in play, for the fans and everyone up there in Mount Pleasant, is it the expectation that Coach Drinkle is going to build this program and his image and make CMU a MAC contender in the next few years?
Absolutely. Again, I just told you I wouldn't be surprised if they got a chance to get into the MAC championship this year.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't happen, of course, that's not a big deal because it's his first year. But, one of the things that I think Coach Mack made aware to all of the fans, he came in his first year after a 1-win season under John Bonamigo, and they were in the MAC championship game the next year. Now, that was 6 years ago, and certainly college football has progressively changed from that time and is ever evolving. But I don't think it's to say that it can't happen again. I mean, the MAC is very up in the air every year. There's not like this one dominant team. There are teams that are typically good year in and year out, the Toledos, the Miamis, the Ohios, the NIUs of recent. But there's not like this dynasty where somebody is winning the conference every single year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's open. And again, there is a lot of parity, which makes it fun. And then you get the midweek games where you just never know what's going to happen once we get to November. But yeah, I mean, this is a program that is one of the traditional powerhouses in the MAC. I mean, they're one of the top teams in MAC championships, and they haven't even been in the league as long as a lot of teams like Miami or some of the others. And yet they still have 7 MAC championships. And that is, again, at the top of the league without winning one here since 2009.
Yeah.
So the goal here for these coaches, when they take this job, you need to go win a MAC championship. And that's what Matt Drinkle was hired to do. Will it happen in these first 2 years? I certainly hope for it, and I know the fans do, and I don't think it's out of the question to have that type of expectation for him.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see in the first year and the first couple of years how a coach does with the program, so we'll get a good look at them on Saturday, too. Here with us today has been the radio play-by-play voice of Central Michigan football, Adam Jacksa. Adam, thanks for taking time out of your busy game week schedule to join us. Enjoy the game Saturday, and the best of luck to the Chips this year.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the game on Saturday.
On Quick Hits today, thanks again to CMU radio play-by-play voice Adam Jacksa for being our guest. A reminder to tell your Wolverine family and friends about the show, like us on X, and please leave your comments or suggestions wherever you get your podcasts from. We'll be back Thursday with our Michigan Game Day show. Our featured guest will be beat writer Aaron McMahon from M Live. We will have any injury or team news that is updated between now and then, some game day notes of interest, and a peek at the weather for Saturday's noon kickoff. So make sure you join us. That does it for now. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Keep your chin up, and let's hope the team does the same. Until Thursday, take care, and as always, go blue.
Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!